what is Special Strong? What do you guys do, and how'd you get started?
Yeah, so Special Strong. So I always like to start with our story and then lead into what we do. So when I was 4 years old, I was diagnosed with a learning disability, and my parents did not know how to help me. So they put me on medication, they got me counseling, and those things certainly help, but it wasn't the full answer for me. So they ended up actually getting me involved in sports. And when I had a physical outlet, everything just got better. And so my behavior improved, my ability to socialize got better. And so when I figured that out, I fell in love with fitness and physical activity. So from a very early age, I rode my bike up to the YMCA every day, lifted weights. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew I loved the feeling of just getting under heavy weights. And it regulated me. And it also gave me a sense of purpose, a sense of fulfillment. So I did that all throughout middle school and then all throughout high school. And then I had a really hard time with socializing in high school because of this learning disability. I was labeled as special needs in high school. So I was bullied, did not fit into any specific crowd. And so in my freshman year of high school, I found a crowd that would accept me, and they were the drug users.
Oh,
So starting my freshman year of high school, I started using drugs, and it was the only thing that I could do to really fit in to a crowd. So started using drugs and did that all throughout high school. And then my senior year of high school, I overdosed on drugs and ended up checking out of high school, went to a drug rehab program and got sober of drugs and switched over to steroids. Because if you're not doing drugs, then you might as well do something like steroids, right? That was
oh,
my
sure.
mindset was, well, they're not drugs and working out is healthy, right? That was my mindset at the time. So I got real serious into working out, bodybuilding, anabolic steroids. And then one day everything changed for me. I went to 24-hour fitness. That's where I worked out. And literally out of nowhere, somebody interrupted my workout and said, "Hey, my name's Jason. I'd like to catch a workout with you." And thought it was really strange because there was no context to it. But I worked out with him and he invited me to church afterwards. And I ended up going to church and everything changed. Went to church and really discovered my faith, which at that time I had no faith at all. And I was headed for complete destruction. And I really fell in love with a God that loved me unconditionally, even in the peak of my addiction. And I was radically transformed as a result of that. So that was in about 2007, 2008. And so once I started going to church, I actually started to get mentored by an older man named Rob Moore. And he mentored me for years. And I'll never forget the day. And this is how Special Strong got started. It was November 11th of 2011, which
Mhm.
was Veterans Day. So really easy to remember because it's 11, 11, 11.
Yep.
So he sits down with me and I'm just thinking, this is going to be another mentoring session. But instead he throws me a curveball and he goes, "Daniel," he said, "God gave me a word and a vision for your life. And in this vision, I saw you working with kids and adults that had disabilities." And that's all he said. And I didn't understand what that meant, what that looked like. All I knew in that moment was that my calling was discovered. My calling was in some capacity to work with kids and adults that had disabilities. And so at that time, I was a personal banker at Chase Bank. So obviously what I was doing did not line up with the vision. So I just kept going on in banking. Ended up meeting my wife in 2013 and told her about the vision. Ended up making a career change to work in the fitness industry. And then in 2016, we felt like between my wife and I, we felt like it was time to start our own thing. So 2016 came around and we started Special Strong in McKinney, Texas. And we provide adaptive fitness training, which is different than traditional training. Adaptive fitness training is really adapting the workout or the style of training to customize it for someone who has adaptive needs. So in our case, that's autism, cerebral palsy, wheelchair users, stroke survivors, traumatic brain injuries. And so we just take traditional fitness, adapt the program for them. And then we also do a lot of unique programming with the brain. So we do a lot through fitness that specifically targets the brain, which is so important in the adaptive needs community. So that's my story, and that is what we do.
Daniel, unbelievable. I mean, you are a huge inspiration in so many ways. I wasn't expecting that story. Quite honestly, I've read a little bit about, your background about Special Strong, but wow, you have overcome quite, quite an incredible amount of, challenges. And, you are definitely in the right place. It seems like where you need to be and to be able to really help others. So I congratulate you
Thank
for
you.
what you've done, Daniel. You are definitely here to make a difference in the lives of others, and are doing that.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. Gosh, so when you were going to take on Special Strong, when you were going to start this company, though, and you're talking with your wife, Trinity, I believe her name is, right?
Yes.
So when you and Trinity are talking about Special Strong, like for how long was this vision kind of unfolding before you launched this? And tell me about the courage that you had to actually start this company. Did you quit your job and just start this location? Were you operating it in a brick and mortar? Did you use other facilities? I'd like to kind of hear how this whole company really started.
Yeah, it was a challenging transition. So I left what happened in 2013. I left the banking industry, and I left the banking industry to go into the fitness industry. So the first job I found was a women's weight loss center, and it had a comparable salary to what I was making at the bank. So I thought, you know what, this is a really good first step. So I left banking and I managed a weight loss center in McKinney for about 6 months. And then what I didn't know about this weight loss center was they had been through two or three previous management turnovers because of profitability issues and staffing issues. So when I came in, I didn't know any of that. I found out later through some of the existing staff, and I thought, wow, what did I get myself into? And long story short is within 6 months, the company in McKinney shut down. And they said, if you want a job, we've got an opportunity for you in Tyler, Texas, which was a couple hours away from me. And I said, absolutely not. I'm not going to Tyler, Texas for a company that's not even performing well. So that left me unemployed. And I ended up starting up my own fitness training business in a little city called Howe. My wife and I had just gotten married, and so we were living in Howe at the time, and we were actually living in her parents' house because we couldn't afford our own apartment and we couldn't afford a house. So I'm living in a city that's 10 or 20,000 people. And I remember one day going to the local gym to a Bible study that was at the gym, and I asked for prayer, and I said, guys, I need a job. And the owner said, hey, if you want to work here, you've got to build up your own client base, but you can do it here. So I literally, what I did was he gave me access, and they didn't have like technology where they had like a CRM. So he gave me like a stack of hundreds and hundreds of papers. Each paper was a signed membership from a customer. And I just went in a little room with a cheap chair, and I called every single one of those members. And I said, hi, my name is Daniel Stein. I'm a new trainer at Number One Fitness. I would like to have you come in for a free session to see if it's a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did that over and over and over again. And within about 3 months, I had built a full-time business making decent money. And that's how I started my personal training business. And then we were doing well financially, or better at least. And we thought, it's time to move out on our own and get out of Howe. And because again, we were living with my wife's parents. So we moved to McKinney, and that was about 45 minutes away from Howe. So I lost all of my clients, and I said goodbye to all of them. And I found a local Snap Fitness in McKinney. And I went up to the Snap Fitness owners and I said, hey, I'm transitioning from Howe to McKinney, and I might bring like one or two clients, but I'd like to build up a business in your gym. Can I have access to your members, please? And they said, sure. So I literally called every single one of Snap Fitness's members and built up another full-time business in McKinney. And I did that for a year. And the nice thing about that was in Howe, I was probably charging about $30 to $40 an hour because the income was so low there. But in McKinney, I was able to charge closer to like $75 an hour because the demographics were better. So now in my mind, I'm making a lot better money. And so I did that for about a year. And then eventually I had called everybody at the club. There's probably like 750 members. So I'd called every one of them. And every client has a season and a life cycle. So the challenge that I was having was the life cycle of my customers were going away. So I'd be with them for 6 months and they'd be gone, and I wasn't replacing those customers. So I was starting to dwindle down my customers. I didn't do any lead generation, didn't know how to do that. So I told my wife, I said, I think I need to go work for an actual gym where they can feed me clients. So I got a job at Lifetime Fitness in 2016. And you'll never guess what I did. I went there and I said, I want access to
Every one of your members.
Every one of us. I want access to every one of your members.
Right.
And nobody else, there were about 30 trainers at the Allen gym. Nobody else was doing this except for me. And I would call and text every single member in alphabetical order. And I built up a full-time business, and I became one of the top performers for the entire company across the United States.
Wow.
Yep. So I did that for a year. And then after about a year, my business really took a major nosedive, and it was very unexpected. But from a faith standpoint, I really felt like it was a transition season. So after doing so well there for a year, again, my business took a big nosedive. I was bringing in about $25,000 a month in revenue for personal training personally. And that was about over a year period. And then literally within a month period, it went down to about 5 or 10,000.
What happened?
You know what? I don't, to this day, I don't know what happened. All I know is that it was supposed to happen. And here's why. When I started dwindling down those customers, which started just leaving out of nowhere, I was at a very pivotal moment where I said, I can build this business up again. I've done it 3 times, but I can also go pursue this vision that Rob has called me to do. And so I made the decision. I'm gonna pursue this business. I'm not gonna build up my business at Lifetime Fitness. I'm gonna go this other direction. And I started getting mentored by a serial entrepreneur. And I said, hey, this is what I want to do. How do I do it? And we met probably about 10 times, just hour-long conversations. He would tell me exactly what to do, and I would do it exactly the way he said to do it. And then left Lifetime Fitness and started Special Strong. We depleted our savings accounts. We maxed out credit cards, and I liquidated my 401k from Chase Bank to start the company.
You burned the boats.
Oh, totally burned the boats. No backup. No tank with gasoline in it. It's all gone. We went all in.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.